QD-OLED is king. You've definitely heard that in the past few years. From the Samsung S90D to the Sony A95L, nothing beats the bright and vivid colors that QD-OLEDs are known for. Sure, they have some drawbacks, but WOLEDs were always just a step behind the best QD-OLEDs. Until now. Hey, I'm Nicholas from Ratings.com. Today we're going to compare two flagship TVs that have come out in 2025. The Samsung S95F, which has a QD-OLED panel on its 55, 65, and 77-inch sizes, and the WOLED LG G5. But it isn't just a regular WOLED that we've come to know over the past few years. All the sizes of the LG, except for the 97-inch, feature the new RGB tandem panel, which is meant to boost brightness and color purity. In other words, it's a WOLED that's meant to compete with QD-OLEDs. So exactly how do these TVs stack up? And is the G5 a true match for the S95F? Before getting into it, we'll skip over the stuff that's the same between any OLED. The perfect blacks in dark rooms, no blooming, you get it. We'll get right to the fun stuff and what you're most likely using these TVs for. Watching movies in HDR. They're kind of neck and neck in terms of brightness. Some content is brighter on the Samsung, other content on the LG. They can both reach over 2000 nits with small highlights, so they really pop. Crazy! However, the LG can't sustain this brightness the longer a highlight stays on screen. We could talk about these small differences all you want, but you get it, both TVs are incredibly bright. They're both pretty accurate before any sort of calibration in HDR2, with only minor differences there. But where the Samsung really is the clear winner is the HDR Color Volume. This is what QD-OLEDs have always been known for, and that continues today. It displays bright and dark colors without any issues, making your favorite content look punchy and vivid. This isn't to say that the LG is bad, it's actually pretty excellent for this. It's a significant improvement over other WOLEDs, and even whites get pretty bright. It's just that bright colors aren't as vivid as on the Samsung. That isn't the only thing we want to talk about with HDR. They also support different formats. The LG supports Dolby Vision, which is available with a lot more content than the HDR10 Plus format that the Samsung supports. This gives the LG the advantage if you're looking for something for your home theater setup, so you can watch your stacked Blu-ray collection. Like most TVs, they both support the more basic HDR10 format. But here's the thing. The LG has known issues with HDR10. There's contouring around dark objects in dark scenes, making the picture look weird. It adds banding and goes against the creator's intent. This doesn't happen in Dolby Vision, and it's really an issue with HDR10 only. If this gets fixed with a firmware update, we'll update the review on the website. And what about processing? That's still an important part of watching movies. The one area where the S95F is better for processing has to do with gradients in HDR. There's less banding between shades of any given color. The LG has more banding with grays and bright greens. At least both TVs have fantastic PQ EOTF tracking, so they display content close to the intended brightness in HDR. On the other hand, the G5 is better for watching lower quality or low resolution content. It does a better job at smoothing out macro blocking from low bandwidth sources, like streaming. It's also better at upscaling lower resolution content, which is great if you want to watch your old DVDs, or even just cable TV. And if you're watching that content in SDR, then most of the things we just talked about still apply. The Samsung has better color volume in SDR, especially with the rare content that uses the DCI-P3 or BT2020 color spaces, or if you adjust the TV settings. They're more even in the Rec 709 color space though. Those colors are also extremely accurate on both TVs before any sort of calibration. Sure, we can point out some minor differences if we're going to be nitpicky, but these are so hard to tell. And like in HDR, both TVs are incredibly bright in SDR. The LG does get brighter with most content though, like with the fact that it's 100 nits brighter with full screen windows. But this is only if you put the TVs to their max brightness, like if you want to fight glare in a sunny room. Speaking of which, it's time to talk about reflections. Not only do these TVs have different panels, but they also have different screen coatings, each with their own pros and cons. The Samsung has a matte coating, while the LG is glossy. Let's start with the matte coating on the Samsung. Simply put, it handles direct reflections exceptionally well one of the best we've ever seen. It really absorbs most light, and it's hard to see even the brightest light bouncing off the screen. This isn't the case with the glossy coating of the LG. Sure, it still does an excellent job at reducing glare, but light bounces off like a mirror. You might find this distracting if you have it in a sunny room. So while the Samsung is clearly the winner for pure reflection handling, the LG actually does a better job at retaining its top picture quality in bright rooms. This is because the black levels don't rise much, making it much better than the Samsung. Blacks look purple on that TV, which is a typical drawback of QD-OLEDs. Colors, especially darker ones, also lose their saturation in bright rooms quicker on the Samsung than on the LG. So basically, the Samsung is the better choice if you want something that minimizes glare, but the LG still has better overall picture quality in a bright room. And the last thing we want to talk about is gaming. They're actually pretty similar for this. Motion looks sharp at any refresh rate on either of them. They also both have max refresh rates of 165Hz and support all common VRR formats. One difference is that the LG has weirdly higher input lag at 165Hz, which is something to consider if you play games that need fast reactions. Just keep in mind that this is something that could get fixed with a future firmware update, so we'll update the published review if that's the case. But the input lag is the same between them at 60 and 120Hz. No difference here if you play games at those refresh rates, like on consoles. Speaking of which, they both support almost all features that the PS5 and Xbox offer. The only difference is that the LG supports Dolby Vision with an Xbox. So, with all that said, which TV is better? It's clear that these are two of the best TVs on the market, and honestly speaking, you can't go wrong with either. But when you're planning to spend all that money on a high-end TV, you'll want to know the minor differences between them. And don't worry, that's what we do here. So when looking at those small details, they each have pros and cons, and honestly, it comes down to preference. The LG is the better choice if you want Dolby Vision and better processing. And even though colors aren't as vivid as on the Samsung, they're still punchy. It really is the first WOLED panel that truly competes with a QD-OLED in terms of picture quality. Of course, we're saying this without mentioning the HDR10 issue. That is a pretty big drawback, and you might want to wait to see if it gets fixed with a firmware update. But if you're concerned about that and you want a TV now without any worries, the Samsung is still a fantastic choice. Plus, the Samsung is the better option if you want to use it in a bright room and you're worried about reflections bouncing off the screen. Of course, the biggest downside of using it in a bright room is that the picture quality looks worse. But in reality, you'll want to use either of these TVs in a dark room to get the best out of them. To answer the main question, the G5 is definitely a true match for the S95F, and choosing one over another really comes down to personal preferences, like which screen coating you prefer. That's all for the comparison between the LG G5 and the Samsung S95F. What do you think? Are you going to get one of them? If you want more details, check out our written reviews. The links are in the description below. Until next time, I'm Nicholas from Ratings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao. Hey, I'm Nicholas from Ratings.com. Today we're going to compare. You're going to compare. I'm not too sure about that. Okay.